Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of The Flash. And we're 3 episodes in, and the show's, I think doing a good job. It's still holding my attention. Um, this episode, we spend a lot of time with Barry thinking about his mom, and obviously still hoping and wanting to get his father out of prison. In one scene, he even tells Joe that he could just run in there and grab him and take off with him. And in a really good scene between Joe and Barry, he explains to him, sure, you can grab your dad, but then what? You guys are just going to be on the run. He's never going to be at peace, and everyone's still going to think he's guilty of killing your mother. So, Joe's trying to let Barry know that we're going to figure this out. We're going to set your father free, but we're going to do it the right way. We can't just have you swoop in there and try to steal your dad out of there. So, another great scene between Joe and Barry. I think that these two really have some solid scenes whenever they're together. We also had a really good scene between Barry and his dad at the end of the episode. He is totally selling all that stuff, whenever he's emotional about his mom and his family. And his father tells him a story about when he first learned how to walk, and he basically was running. And, obviously, that is one of the reasons why Barry got this extra power, and he's a metahuman now, because he was always running, but he was never the fastest person, but now he is. So a really great closing out scene between Barry and his dad, and there was also a good scene between Henry and Joe, and it was like the first time that they've had a conversation together in a long time, and Joe says to him, "I know that you didn't kill your wife," and it's almost like this look of relief on Henry's face that somebody other than his son actually believes him. So I think he realizes that they're going to try to do whatever they can to get him out of there. And that's, at least it gives him some hope. And he can be a little bit optimistic that he won't be behind bars for much longer. We also had some good scenes between Barry and Caitlin in this episode. And in this episode, we were introduced to, or at least we got to see who Caitlin's fiance was. His name is Rodney, and Ronnie, and he died during the explosion 9 months ago, or at least we're to assume he died in the explosion 9 months ago. I called it from episode 1 that he's probably not dead, and I'm pretty much banking on the fact that he's not going to be dead. We got a little bit of a backstory, and he was there. Caitlin and Ronnie met at their job, and he wasn't even supposed to be there that night, but he wanted to be there for Caitlin, and he ended up dying in the explosion, we're to believe. So some really nice scenes between Barry and Caitlin, and I'm almost sort of getting the vibe that they're gonna have this bond between one another, and then when Ronnie comes back, there's gonna be a problem, which I think seems to be working organically right now. I'm actually liking the way that they're developing their friendship more than the way that they're developing the relationship that already exists between him and Iris. It's a little too flighty for me. I don't know. I just feel like Iris is clueless to the stuff that's going on with Barry, and they're just not really writing her in a way that we're supposed to really care about her as a character on the show. She just kind of pops in, she kisses her boyfriend, she, goes on a phone call when she's out with Barry, and then she tells her dad she's dating her boyfriend at the end of the episode. Big whoop. There's really been no character development with Iris, which is disappointing because I feel like she is a central character. She was raised with Barry. They have this emotional connection, and they're just kind of glossing over it, and they're just passing it over, and I'm just not happy with it. But the stuff that hit with him and Caitlin is working. The stuff with him and Cisco is working, and we even got a little bit more in depth with Cisco in this episode because we saw what happened between him and Ronnie when he asked him to lock him into the chamber, and he begged him not to, but he did it anyway. And he basically Ronnie was like, "If you don't close the door, then we're all gonna die." So you can tell that Cisco has obviously some regrets and he feels horrible and he wanted to talk to Caitlin about it, but she's pretty much like absolving him of his guilt and just letting him know, listen, Ronnie saved a lot of people that night, and that's how I'm looking at it, and I'm remembering him that way. So, I think that you can see that Cisco, that weighs a lot on him, the fact that he had a hand in him dying. Of course, we also got, oh, sorry. When I said, when I was calling Barry's dad, oh yeah, I'm talking about Harrison now. So Harrison obviously is not quite who he appears to be. And once again, we get this interesting reveal at the end of the episode when it goes to the flashback 9 months ago when everything is going to hell in a handbasket very quickly. And he's talking to Cisco on the intercom and he tells him he's on the way down to where they all are. And he takes a little bit of a detour and goes into that secret room compartment where we saw it in the first episode when he sees the newspaper that says that the Flash has gone missing. And he enters into this room, he whips off his glasses, makes a turn, walks up to the same little tablet that's on this table, and a video loads up, and it's a camera showing Barry in his lab just before the lightning strikes. So Harrison knew that he was going to get struck by this lightning, and he says in a very cryptic way, "See you soon." Like, really? So this was a plan the whole time? Like, what? I don't know, guys, but that was a nice little cliffhanger. I really enjoyed that. And there's just a lot about Harrison that we don't know and will be very interesting when that stuff starts to come out. So our villain in this week's episode was a man who could turn into like gas, and he was basically literally turning into it and injecting and going into people's mouths and killing them. Kind of cool. So he was a man who was sentenced to death. And the reason he could do most of this stuff was because he was on death row and he was about to, sorry about that. He was about to be executed. And when they had injected him with the chemicals, the storm happened, and that's now how he can turn. So anyway, he was pretty cool. Barry had to try to fight him, try to get him down. And the way he could do it was pretty cool. He had to try to make him run out of energy pretty much, and so that he would not be able to transform into this gas particles. And that's how he was able to win over in the end. And what was important with this was we got those flashbacks in the beginning of the episode because that chamber where Ronnie had died in is now where what they're gonna use to lock up these metahumans that they catch and don't kill. Interesting. So when Barry ends up catching him after he tries to kill Joe, because Joe was the lead detective who arrested him, so he wanted to try to kill Joe as well. He breaks into the prison when Joe's seeing Henry, and he basically goes inside Joe. Barry comes and saves the day. Pretty cool. And that's when he fights him and he wins. So now this creeper of a villain is locked up at Star's lab, where he will remain until God knows how long. Which is kind of cool because then there'll be a collection of these baddies, and then I'm sure at some point there will be an all-out war. They'll all get out, and it'll be complete mayhem and pandemonium everywhere. But yeah, another solid episode. It was interesting to see the backstory on Caitlin and Ronnie, and to see what Harrison is up to, what we don't really know what he's up to see the dynamic change between Joe and Henry, and of course to see that scene at the end with Barry and his dad was very touching. And then, of course, we know that Eddie and Iris have revealed their relationship to Joe, and Joe was aware of it pretty much the whole time. Who cares? That's how I thought about that scene. I was like, can we move on, please? I'm just not really interested in that whole storyline. I am interested in them building up Iris as a stronger character and somebody that I'm supposed to care about. That's what I do care about. All right, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode. I enjoyed it. And I hope that we continue to get really good, solid episodes moving forwards and that they really start to tie in all these things to a major plot point. Obviously, Barry is trying to figure out what happened to his mom and how she died and who actually killed her. So that is the main thread that's going on throughout this season. But I hope that it's tied to a bigger, larger overall picture, which I'm sure it will be. And I hope that we start to get those loose ends or those ends start to come together and have everything start to make a puzzle that we can start to see. All right, guys, that's it for me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.